The world returns to focus in a blur of green and blue, the scent of grass replacing the stench of death. Confusion grips me as I realize I am no longer a dying man, but an infant lying in a crib under the open sky. Above me, towering blades gleam in the sunlight, markers of the right of choice that determines a run candle's fate. I look down at my own tiny hands, trembling, not with weakness, but with the shock of a second chance. Instinct and memory merge as I crawl forward, ignoring the lesser weapons that would condemn me to mediocrity. My gaze locks onto Balasada, the patriarch's sword, the symbol of absolute power and rule within the clan. I reach out and grasp the hilt, my tiny fingers curling around the cold steel with a resolve that defies my age. A ripple of shock passes through the watching clansmen as they witness the youngest son claim the weapon of the ruler. Whispers erupt around the cradle, marking this moment as the beginning of a prophecy I intend to fulfill. From the shadows, the imposing figure of my father, Karan Runkandel, watches with an unreadable expression. I hold the sword tight, the weight of it anchoring me to this new reality, far different from the hell I left behind. In my past life, this world was ruled by the Runcandle clan, a family defined by their ruthless philosophy of domination. They were apex predators, gifted with superior strength and swordsmanship that allowed them to crush all opposition. To be a Runcandle was to struggle, to achieve, and to relish the absolute power that came with victory. I was born into this lineage of monsters, the youngest son expected to uphold the clan's terrifying legacy. My name is Jin Runcandle, and in that first life, I was nothing more than a stain on the family honor. Despite the prophecy of the right, I grew up displaying zero talent for the sword, a fatal flaw in our bloodline. I leaned against a practice blade I could barely lift, trembling under the weight of expectations I could never meet. They called me the Shame of the Runcandles, a moniker that followed me through every hallway and training ground. My siblings, cruel and gifted, took every opportunity to remind me of my place at the bottom of the food chain. I became a punching bag for their amusement, my body bruised and my spirit chipped away piece by piece. Even as they tore my clothes and mocked my helplessness, I clung to the delusional hope that effort would save me. I trained until my hands bled, believing that hard work could bridge the gap between mediocrity and genius. I thought that if I just tried harder, I could earn a sliver of trust, a momentary acknowledgement from my family. But the Runcandels do not value effort. They value results, and at age 25, I was banished. The gates of the clan slammed shut behind me, severing my ties to the only home I had ever known. I wandered the world as a vagrant, stripped of my name and dignity, until a chance encounter changed everything. A master of magic found me, looking past my failures to see a dormant potential I never knew existed. I discovered I had a talent not for the sword, but for magic, a power strictly forbidden within my warrior clan. Shadows danced at my fingertips, revealing that I was capable of harnessing a force that defied Runcandle tradition. And then, the god of shadows, Soldaret, appeared before me, answering the call of my awakening. He offered me a contract, a bond that would grant me the power to wield shadows and defy destiny. Soldaret revealed the cruel truth. My lack of talent was due to a curse, the blade's delusion, cast by a jealous sibling. With a snap of his fingers, he shattered the curse, freeing my potential and promising me a future as a spell sword. For the first time, the sword felt light in my hands, moving as an extension of my will rather than a burden. I trained with renewed fervor, finally tasting the progress that had been denied to me for a quarter of a century. But fate is a cruel jester. Just as I grasped hope, my body failed. And I died in my sleep before I could truly begin. I faded into darkness with nothing but regret, cursing the unfairness of a life that ended just as it started. But that darkness was not the end, and now I stare at these small hands, ready to rewrite a history of failure. Following the clan's tradition, I am sent to Storm Castle, a fortress where I must survive until the age of 10. 6 years pass in seclusion, the storm raging outside mirroring the quiet intensity of my preparation. I spend my days in the library, devouring knowledge to arm myself with the wisdom I lacked in my first life. I reach for a book on a high shelf, my child's body a limitation I must work around with patience. The peace of my exile is shattered when I return to my room to find a dead bird placed on my desk. It is a crude message, so a gift meant to instill fear, and I know exactly who sent it. I turn to face the intruders, my expression hardening as I recognize the perpetrators of this childish cruelty. The Tona twins, Haytona and Diatona, stand there with smirks that promise nothing but malice. In my past life, they grew into murderers, but for now, they are just bullies looking for a victim. They mock the dead bird, gauging my reaction, expecting tears or fear from their little brother. I stare at them blankly, refusing to give them the satisfaction of an emotional response. I hold the bird's corpse, a surge of cold anger building beneath my calm facade as I process their disrespect. They taunt me about Balisada, asking where the great sword is now that I'm just a helpless child. One of them leans in, feigning deafness, daring me to speak up and challenge their authority. He grabs my shoulder, his grip tightening as he prepares to teach me manners through violence. I decide that the time for hiding is over and unleash a fraction of my spiritual power into a punch. My fist connects, and the shock on his face is immediate as the impact sends him reeling back. I move with a speed that belies my age, closing the distance before his twin can process the shift in power. A second blow lands, precise and heavy, powered by the shadow force I have secretly cultivated. I stand over them as they groan on the floor, the hierarchy of the room instantly inverted. I look down at them with cold eyes, warning them to stay out of my sight if they value their limbs. The door bursts open, and Jilly, my nanny, rushes in, followed by the castle's guardian knight. Khan, the knight, stares at the unconscious twins, his confusion evident as he tries to piece together the scene. He looks at me, a 7-year-old standing calmly amidst the carnage, and struggles to reconcile the image. The twins groan, their bravado shattered, revealing the pathetic reality beneath their bullying. I order Khan not to take them to a doctor, but to drag them outside into the raging storm. Rain lashes down on the stone courtyard as Khan hesitates, shocked by the ruthlessness of my command. I place my hand on a makeshift grave for the bird, my voice steady as I explain the lesson they must learn. The twins are left shivering in the mud, forced to endure the elements as penance for their cruelty. I watch from the shadows, knowing that in this family, mercy is a weakness I cannot afford to show. News of the incident travels fast, and soon, a report is sent to the main house regarding my actions. The patriarch himself, Karan Runkendel, decides to visit Storm Castle, mobilizing the clan's elite. I clench my fist, feeling the shadow force pulse within me, knowing that my real test is about to arrive. The atmosphere in the castle shifts, the air growing heavy with the impending arrival of the world's strongest knight. Khan confirms that the flag bearers have assembled, a gathering of power that could level a kingdom. They arrive in the rain, a procession of terrifying warriors led by my siblings, the future rulers of the clan. I see Luna, the eldest, her presence radiating a calm yet overwhelming strength that separates her from the rest. Sieran steps from his carriage, his aura suppressing the very storm around him. The siblings whisper among themselves, wondering why their father would mobilize such force for a child's tantrum. Daifus, the fourth flag bearer, questions the logic, his calculating eyes scanning for a hidden motive. The great doors of the hall creak open, and the heavy tread of armored boots echoes through the silence. Sieran enters, his cape swirling like a thundercloud, his gaze fixing instantly on me. He orders the Tona twins brought before him, his voice low but commanding absolute obedience. The twins tremble as they kneel, terrified by the scrutiny of the man who holds their lives in his hands. Under pressure, they lie, claiming innocence and accusing me of using a strange power to defeat them. The accusation hangs in the air. Magic is a taboo that warrants death or banishment in our clan. My other siblings seize on this, demanding an interrogation to purge the potential stain on the family. Sieran silences them with a single word, his authority cutting through their bickering like a blade. He turns his attention to me, summoning me forward to answer for the violence I inflicted. I step forward, maintaining eye contact, refusing to show the fear that a child should feel. I bow respectfully, but my greeting is deliberate. Greetings to the patriarch, not father. Luna raises an eyebrow, impressed by the subtle distinction that frames this as an official trial. Karan accepts the formality but corrects me, granting permission to address him as father for this moment. He asks the crucial question: what mistake did the twins make during our fight? I look him in the eye and answer that their mistake was weakness, and my response was revenge. I explain that I did not use magic, but resolve and mind's eye, twisting the truth to fit their warrior code. Sharon leans forward, his aura flaring to test the truth of my words and the strength of my spirit. He mentions Sol de Re, probing to see if I react to the name of the god of shadows. The pressure intensifies, a crushing weight that would knock a normal knight unconscious, let alone a child. I grit my teeth, circulating my shadow force internally to brace my small body against the onslaught. Sharon stops, a flicker of satisfaction crossing his face as I remain standing, defiant and unbroken. He declares that I have passed, but with a warning: he will be watching me closely from now on. Before leaving, the entourage departs, but not before my sister Mary leaves a heavy package with the servants. Inside is a phoenix heart, a legendary elixir that grants immunity to fire and vast mana, a gift from a mad woman. I stare at the glowing heart, realizing that Mary's chaotic nature might be my greatest asset. Days later, I sneak into the secret underground library, guided by a pull I can't ignore. The library is vast and silent, filled with forbidden tomes that the clan hid away centuries ago. In the center, a massive glass tube holds a figure suspended in stasis, radiating dark energy. The figure opens his eyes and the shadows in the room seemingly come alive to greet him. A voice booms in my mind, demanding to know who dares disturb the slumber of the dark dragon. Murakami steps out, his form shifting from human to shadow, imposing and ancient. He sniffs the air, his aggression fading as he detects the familiar scent of his old master's power. He realizes I am Sol de Re's contractor, the successor he has waited 1,000 years to meet. He introduces himself properly, the arrogance replaced by a sworn loyalty to the one who wields the shadows. I ask if he will be with me, securing the ultimate ally for the dangerous path I have chosen. Murakami shrinks into the form of a black cat to conserve energy, a disguise that belies his true power. We begin our training immediately, utilizing the secret tomes to awaken my dormant abilities. He places a hand on my head, transferring knowledge and mana to jumpstart my growth. He teaches me Shadow Force Release, the fundamental technique for manipulating the darkness. I execute the move on my first try, the shadows obeying my command as if they were always part of me. Murakami is stunned by my proficiency, much unaware that I carry the mental discipline of an experienced adult. He declares that I have the potential to become the master of all shadows, surpassing even the first patriarch. Time moves forward, and the day comes for me to leave Storm Castle and return to the main house. I celebrate my 9th birthday, a quiet affair with Gilly and Murakami, masking the tension of departure. But the peace is interrupted when a visitor is announced, someone who shouldn't be here. Luna Runkendell walks in, her presence filling the room with a serene but undeniable pressure. She asks for a private audience, dismissing the servants so we can speak without filters. She kneels to my eye level, her expression softening into something rare for a Runkendell: concern. She reveals that she knows someone tried to assassinate me, confirming the danger I am in. Luna tells me she stepped down from the succession to avoid killing her siblings, a confession of love and burden. She warns me that by catching Father's eye, I have painted a target on my back for the rest of the family. She hugs me, a gesture of genuine affection that heals a wound from my past life I didn't know I still carried. She hands me a pendant with a blue gem, a protective charm infused with her own formidable power. She tells me to shatter it if I ever face a threat I cannot handle, promising to come to my aid instantly. I watch her leave, clutching the pendant, realizing I have gained a powerful protector in this timeline. We depart the castle, Gilly driving the carriage while Murakami naps in his feline form. The journey is interrupted by an ambush, masked assailants blocking our path in the snow. They bear the crest of the Zyphel clan, the sworn enemies of the Runkendells, but something feels off. The carriage lurches as the attack begins, arrows and magic raining down on our position. Gilly pushes me down, her face losing its gentle warmth as she prepares for violence. She steps out, declaring she will protect me as a vassal of the clan, and her aura explodes outwards. Claws of energy extend from her fingers, revealing her secret identity as a former 7-star martial artist. She moves moves like a blur, shredding the attackers with a ferocity that stuns the escort knights. Within moments, the ambush is dismantled, the snow stained red with the blood of the imposters. I inspect the bodies, confirming my suspicion that these were not true Zyphal elites, but a setup. We arrive at the Mytel portal, the gateway that will take us to the Runkandel territory. While waiting for the transfer, I spot a boy with silver hair and purple eyes, a Zyphal. It is Veradine Zyphal, the genius heir of the enemy clan, looking far younger and more mischievous than I remember. He approaches us, feigning friendliness while secretly preparing a spell to cause chaos. I sense the mana gathering and step in, cutting off his casting with a whispered threat. I tell him that if he tries that again, I will remove the fingers he needs to cast his magic. Veradine freezes, the playful mask dropping as he realizes I am not a normal child he can toy with. He retreats, wary and intrigued, marking the beginning of a rivalry that will span decades. The portal activates and we are whisked away to the Garden of Swords, the heart of the Runkandel clan. The massive estate looms ahead, a forest of swords planted in the ground, acting as a graveyard for the honored dead. We enter the main hall where my mother, Rosa Runkandel, sits on a throne of judgment. Her gaze is cold and dissecting, assessing me not as a son, but as a potential asset or liability. She spots Murakhan on my shoulder and demands to know why I brought a stray beast into the hall. I hold the cat up, declaring boldly that this creature is now in my care and belongs to me. Ciaran enters, overhearing the exchange, and asks what I have named the beast. I look him in the eye and name the dragon Kitty Runkandel, a deliberate provocation to the family's pride. The siblings erupt in outrage at the insult to our name, but Ciaran throws his head back and laughs. He approves the name, amused by my audacity, but warns that I must bear the weight of my bold claim. His laughter fades into a predatory grin, signaling that by asserting myself, I have officially entered the game. 4 years pass, and I am now 14, a cadet in the novice class hiding my true strength. I maintain a facade of mediocrity, staying in the middle of the pack to avoid premature scrutiny. I befriend Velop, a commoner cadet who is struggling, knowing from my past life that he has untapped potential. I encourage him, offering advice and food, planting seeds of loyalty that will harvest later. The day of the grand assessment arrives, and I am matched against Mesa Milcano, the top cadet. Mesa is confident, expecting an easy win against the average Runkandel youngest. She attacks with speed and power, her blade seeking to overwhelm me in a flurry of strikes. I dodge with minimal effort, using the mind's eye to read her trajectory before she even commits. I strike her weapon, targeting the same weak point repeatedly with surgical precision. With a final, decisive blow, her sword shatters, leaving her defenseless and shocked. The hall goes silent as I stand victorious, the first crack in my mask of mediocrity revealing the monster beneath. Luna Runkandel stands before me, her presence filling the room with a calm but suffocating pressure. She requests a private moment, asking my nanny and guardian knight to step outside. As the door clicks shut, I feel the weight of her gaze, realizing I am alone with the strongest woman in the clan. She notices my tension and asks if I am unwell, her voice carrying a surprising note of gentleness. I admit that I feel guarded. On a natural instinct when facing a sibling in this family, Luna looms over me, her silhouette stark against the window, confirming that my wariness is justified. But then her expression softens and she apologizes, calling me her baby brother. She kneels to meet my eye level, shattering the image of the cold, distant warrior I knew in my past life. She reveals the reason for her visit. She knows someone has already tried to assassinate me. The revelation hangs in the air. The attack on the carriage wasn't just a bandit raid, but a hit ordered from within. Luna explains that she stepped away from the succession specifically to avoid this kind of bloodshed. She holds my small shoulders, telling me she doesn't want to see me consumed by the clan's terrible traditions. I stare at her, realizing that in my past life, her distance wasn't arrogance, but a refusal to participate in the slaughter. She warns me that because I caught father's attention, the other siblings will now target me relentlessly. She pulls me into a hug, a warmth I never expected to feel within the cold stone walls of a Runkandel castle. I will always be on your side, she whispers, a promise that alters the entire trajectory of my future. She pulls away and hands me a small box, a birthday gift she traveled all this way to deliver. Inside lies a pendant with a deep blue gem, pulsing with a faint, rhythmic magic. She tells me to shatter the gem if I ever face a danger I cannot overcome on my own. It will bring me to you, she says, no matter where you are. I clutch the pendant, realizing I have gained not just a sister, but a guardian of immense power. Murakami, in his cat form, watches from the corner, his eyes narrowing as he senses the mana in the gem. Even the arrogant dragon seems impressed by the potency of the artifact Luna has entrusted to me. Luna departs as quickly as she arrived, leaving me with a new sense of security and a heavier burden of expectation. I stand in the courtyard, watching her figure disappear into the snow, vowing to become strong enough to not need her protection. The day of my departure finally arrives, marking the end of my 6-year confinement in Storm Castle. Gilly packs my belongings, her usual cheerful demeanor dampened by the anxiety of the journey ahead. I ask her to pack the secret tomes from the library separately, intending to study them in the carriage. Murakami paws at the door, impatient to leave the castle that has been his prison for 1,000 years. As we walk to the carriage, Gilly reminds me that the clan home, the Garden of Swords, will be far less peaceful. She warns me that I will likely face immediate hostility, but pledges to serve me regardless of the danger. The escort knights, Jerome and Holtz, greet us, their armor gleaming in the cold winter sun. We board the carriage, the wheels crunching over the snow as we begin the long trek to the transfer portal. Hours pass in silence, the rhythmic swaying of the carriage lulling Murakami to sleep on my lap. Suddenly, the carriage lurches violently, throwing us forward as the horses scream in panic. Gilly wraps her arms around me instantly, shielding my body with her own before I can even react. Outside, the sounds of steel clashing and men shouting erupt, signaling an ambush. I peer through the cracked window and see our escorts engaged with a group of masked assailants. The attackers wear the crest of the Zefel clan, the sworn enemies of the Runkandels. It seems impossible that the Zefel would launch a brazen attack so deep in Runkandel territory. Gilly pushes me back, her eyes hardening with a resolve that transforms her from a nanny into a warrior. "Stay here," she orders, her voice dropping an octave, stripping away the persona of a servant. She kicks the carriage door open and steps out into the snow, unarmed but terrifyingly calm. One of the attackers rushes her, his sword raised for a killing blow on what he thinks is a helpless maid. Gilly moves faster than my eyes can track, her hand flashing out in a blur of motion. The attacker collapses, his throat torn open by nothing more than her bare fingers. Energy flares around her, a visible aura that marks her as a master of martial arts. She stomps the ground, the impact sending a shockwave that knocks the remaining assailants off their feet. I watch in awe as she tears through the enemy ranks, realizing my nanny is a former 7-star martial artist. She stands amidst the bodies, her breath clouding in the cold air, revealing her true identity as a McLaurin. I step out of the carriage, looking at the carnage, and realize the Zefel crests were a sloppy disguise. These men were imposters, likely hired by one of my siblings to test me or eliminate me before I reached home. We continue on foot to the portal, the mood somber as we process the reality of the family war. At the Mattel portal station, we wait for our turn, surrounded by travelers wary of the Runkandel name. The portal plaza is crowded, but one figure stands out, a boy with silver hair and distinct purple eyes. I recognize him instantly, Veradine Zefel, the direct heir to the clan that rivals my own. He spots us, a smirk playing on his lips as he recognizes the Runkandel insignia on my coat. He approaches with a casual swagger, apologizing for the stare but clearly looking for trouble. He introduces himself, his tone polite, but his eyes gleaming with a dangerous curiosity. As he speaks, I notice mana gathering at his fingertips, a subtle spell aimed at my bodyguards. He intends to cause a scene, perhaps make them attack him to spark a diplomatic incident. I step in close, grabbing his wrist and squeezing hard enough to grind the bones. "If you cast that spell," I whisper, "I will cut off the fingers you need to weave it." Veradine freezes, the playful mask shattering as he feels the genuine killing intent radiating from me. He realizes I am not a naive child, but someone who understands exactly what he is and what he can do. He pulls his hand back, laughing it off as a joke, but the sweat on his brow betrays his fear. "I'll remember this," he says, retreating into the crowd, marking the start of our rivalry. The portal activates, wrapping us in light and whisking us away from the encounter. We materialize at the Garden of Swords, the massive estate that serves as the heart of the Runkandel Empire. A forest of swords stretches out before the main castle, the graves of the clan's honored dead. I walk the path, feeling the gazes of the ancestors judging the boy who has returned to claim his place. We enter the main hall, where the family has gathered to witness the return of the youngest son. My mother, Rosa Runkindel, sits on the throne, her presence dark and imposing like a panther. I bow, greeting her formally, but her eyes immediately snap to the black cat on my shoulder. "Is that a stray you picked up?" she asks, her tone implying that weakness will not be tolerated. I straighten up, meeting her gaze. "No, father. This creature is now in my care." My father, Sieran, steps out from the shadows, his interest piqued by my defiance. "My son," he rumbles, "what is the name of this cat?" I hold Murakhan up for all to see. "He is Kitty Runkindel, mother." The hall erupts. Siblings shout in outrage, appalled that I would give the family name to a beast. Rosa's eyes narrow, but before she can speak, Sieran bursts into laughter. I like the certainty and boldness of your resolve," he declares, silencing the room. He allows the name, stating that if I am bold enough to claim it, I must be strong enough to defend it. His smile is predatory. Everyone will have to be on their toes now, so they don't get outwitted by their little brother. With that declaration, my safety net vanishes. I am now an active player in the succession war. 4 years pass in a blur of training and study. I turn 14, growing into a young man. I am officially a 2-star knight, a rank I maintain publicly to hide my true progress. I attend the novice cadet class, training alongside commoners and distant relatives to build my foundation. During lunch, I sit with Velop Schmitz, a commoner cadet who is struggling to keep up. In my past life, Velop was kicked out and died in despair, a waste of immense talent. I offer him my extra food, encouraging him to eat and build his strength for the trials ahead. "You deserve it," I tell him. "You're a Runkindel cadet too." I know that with the right push, Velop can become a loyal and powerful ally in the future. He eats gratefully, tears in his eyes, pledging his loyalty to me in that quiet moment. The day of the final assessment arrives, the event that will determine our ranking for the intermediate class. Luna watches from the balcony, having mentored me secretly over the years to refine my technique. My opponent is Mesa Milcano, the top-ranked cadet in the novice class, confident in her victory. She is skilled, aggressive, and believes I am merely an average 2-star knight. The duel begins. Mesa charges, unleashing a flurry of heavy strikes intended to overwhelm me. I stand my ground, using the mind's eye technique Luna taught me to see the flow of her attacks. I don't block, I deflect. I don't retreat, I sidestep. Every movement is calculated efficiency. I strike her blade, not to break her guard, but to hit a microscopic flaw in the steel. Again and again, my practice sword connects with the exact same spot on her weapon. Mesa roars, putting all her strength into a final overhead slash meant to finish me. I swing upward, my blade meeting hers with a resounding crack. Her sword shatters, the tip spinning away into the air as the metal finally gives way to my precision. I point my sword at her throat. "That was a good match, Mesa Milcano." The silence in the arena is deafening. The average youngest son has just dismantled the top prospect. I look up at the balcony, meeting my father's gaze, hiding confirming that the age of Jin Runkindel has truly begun. He stands victorious in the training hall, his breathing steady despite the intensity of the duel. The instructor announces his promotion to the intermediate class, a milestone reached a year early. He turns his attention to the crowd, his gaze locking onto a specific face in the back. The other cadets flinch, terrified that the monster of the novice class has chosen a new target. He points his wooden blade at Velop Schmitz, a commoner cadet trembling in the ranks. "Velop," he calls out, his voice cutting through the murmurs of the crowd. The boy stammers, confused as to why the youngest son of the clan would single him out. He demands a fight, not a spar, pushing the terrified boy to draw his weapon. Velop charges in desperation, his fear fueling a clumsy but powerful strike. He deflects the blow effortlessly. I'm sending the boy crashing into the stone floor. He strikes again and again, not to injure but to break the shell of mediocrity surrounding the boy. He whispers advice amidst the violence, teaching Velop that hesitation is a death sentence here. Velop realizes this is not bullying, but a brutal form of tutelage from a superior warrior. He watches Velop rise, seeing the flicker of determination finally ignite in the boy's eyes. Later, his brothers bring him a meal, their attitude shifting from mockery to cautious servitude. High above, the patriarch watches from the shadows, a predator observing the growth of his cub. He issues an order to his guard, deciding that it is time to test his son with real blood. Days later, he visits his sister Luna, who has promised him a gift for his advancement. she presents a massive blade. The slaughter of bales, a weapon far too large for his frame. He stares at the monstrosity, wondering if his sister is joking with him. Luna laughs and puts it away, revealing her true gift hidden in the shadows of the armory. She draws out Bradamante, a sleek blade that radiates a dark, familiar energy. It is the sibling sword to Balisada, a weapon historically wielded by the first patriarch. He takes the hilt, feeling the weapon hum in resonance with his shadow force. Luna warns him sternly never to make her sad again, her protective nature flaring up. But Murakan interrupts the moment, his spirit projection warning of a grave danger. He explains that wielding Bradamante while his shadow force is weak could cause a fatal overload. The touching moment is broken by Jilly, who rushes in with urgent news from the main house. He has been assigned his first official mission, a task usually reserved for seasoned knights. The destination is the Jian Kingdom border, a dangerous region known for monster activity. He scans the mission roster, noting that his team consists mostly of low-ranked cadets. It smells like a setup, a test designed to break him or kill him before he grows stronger. He accepts the challenge with a smirk, knowing that his father is testing his resolve. The team departs for the snowy borderlands, the cold wind biting at their faces. He notices strange tracks in the snow, signs of a clumsy ambush waiting ahead. Velop rushes back from the vanguard, reporting that the second group has been attacked. He orders his team to move, his eyes narrowing as he senses the scent of blood. They arrive at the scene to find carnage, but the bodies are missing, leaving only bloodstains. He inspects the area, realizing the attackers were not monsters, but skilled humans. A rustle in the trees betrays the presence of a survivor or a trap. An assailant lunges from the shadows, his blade aiming for a kill. He parries the strike with ease, his shadow force coating his blade in an invisible edge. He disarms the man and kicks him to the ground, holding his sword to the attacker's throat. The man confesses he belongs to the Kinzalo, a radical group thought to be extinct. He reveals they kidnapped the female cadets for propaganda, a leverage tool against the clan. He silences the man permanently, having heard enough to formulate a rescue plan. He tracks the enemy to a burning building, the smoke obscuring the battlefield. He engages the Kinzalo forces, his movements a blur of sword and hidden magic. He cuts through a wall of fire, his aura shielding him from the searing heat. He shatters an ice barrier with a single blow, shocking the enemy sorcerers. He utilizes simultaneous casting, layering wind magic over his detection spells. In the basement, he finds Mesa tied up, bruised but alive. A massive explosion rocks the building above, signaling the arrival of a new threat. A hulking figure descends through the smoke, a white werewolf radiating immense power. He identifies himself as Jinrun Candle, meeting the monster's gaze without flinching. The werewolf, Quasito, sneers at the name, eager to kill a cub of his hated enemy. This beast is a 6-star warrior, a foe far beyond what a cadet should be able to handle. He draws Bradamante, the dark blade drinking in the meager light of the dungeon. Quasito attacks, but his claws tearing through the stone floor like paper. He barely dodges, the wind of the strike cutting his cheek. He touches the pendant Luna gave him, tempted to summon her help. He releases his hand, deciding that relying on his sister now would stunt his growth forever. He pushes his shadow force to the limit, awakening the true power of Bradamante. Dark energy erupts from his body, his eyes glowing with the ominous light of the shadows. He blinds the werewolf with a flash of dark mana, seizing the momentary opening. He strikes, his blade slicing through the monster's tough hide and ending the battle. As the adrenaline fades, the backlash hits him, his body convulsing from the energy overload. He forces the rampant energy back down, meditating amidst the ruins to survive. A survivor crawls from the rubble, a noble named Sember Bill, whom the Kinzalo had captured. Sember weeps in gratitude, pledging his life to the young Run Candle who saved him. The mission is declared a success, and they return home with the rescued cadets. Back in his room, he collapses, the exhaustion finally catching up to him. Murkan bites his hand to wake him, furious that he risked his life so recklessly. But the dragon pauses, sensing that the boy's shadow force has jumped to 4 stars. Elsewhere, his sisters Miu and Anne seethe with rage, their plan to humble him having failed. They decide to lend their own slaves to the intermediate class to crush him properly. He is summoned by his mother, Rosa, who sits on her throne like a queen of darkness. She offers him the empty room, the quarters reserved for the successor to the patriarch. He politely refuses, not knowing that taking the room now would paint a target on his back. Rosa smiles, intrigued by the prudence and ambition hiding behind his young face. The next day, the intermediate class gathers for their initiation ceremony. Elder Jed Runkendell steps forward, a terrifying instructor known for his brutality. He releases his aura, a crushing pressure meant to bring the cadets to their knees. The Tona twins tremble, barely able to stay upright under the murderous intent. He walks forward calmly, the pressure washing over him like a gentle breeze. He draws his sword, not in fear, but in challenge to the elder's intimidation. Jed demands his name, though he already knows exactly who this defiant boy is. A cadet named Kazine Romero steps in, trying to curry favor by reprimanding him. He recognizes Kazine as one of Miu and Anne's lackeys, a pawn sent to torment him. He announces his name to the hall, declaring that the age of Jin Runkandel has arrived. I stand my ground before the gathered cadets, my sword drawn in open challenge to the hierarchy. The other intermediate students watch in stunned silence, shocked that a newcomer would be so brazen. Elder Jed Runkandel steps forward, his single eye gleaming with a mix of amusement and cruelty. He asks if I think I can behave this way, simply because of my bloodline. I answer yes, stating that I am not fighting the Tona twins, but him, the instructor. Jed laughs, his aura flaring up like a sudden wildfire, testing my resolve. He demands an explanation for my arrogance before he decides whether to kill me. I holster my blade, the steel clicking softly into the scabbard as I face his pressure. May I tell him that I understood his earlier intimidation as an attack, and I merely responded in kind. Jed grins, retracting his aura, evidently pleased by my refusal to cower. He addresses the class, declaring that my foolish boldness is exactly what the clan needs. He acknowledges my claim to a spot in the intermediate class, silencing any potential objectors. With the drama settled, he dismisses the class, promising that real training begins tomorrow. As the cadets disperse, the Tona twins glare at me, their earlier fear replaced by resentment. I warn them to look beyond the present moment if they want to survive in this family. Back in my room, Jilly greets me, relieved that the first day ended without bloodshed. I explain that while I survived the initiation, the real battle against my sister's faction has just begun. Kazine Romero, Maf the cadet I confronted, is a pawn of Miu and Anne, sent to make my life miserable. The next day, Jed introduces us to the Singing Stones, large spheres of dense metal. The training objective is simple: strike the stone to produce a clear, melodic tone. Jed demonstrates, his sword tapping the sphere lightly, yet producing a resonant hum. A dull thud means failure. A clear ring means perfect force control. If struck with too much unstable power, the stone is designed to explode violently. One of the twins strikes his stone, and it detonates, sending him flying backward. I watch as others fail, realizing that this exercise is about condensing aura, not just unleashing it. I begin my own attempts, spending the entire afternoon striking the metal sphere. Days turn into weeks, the repetitive training exhausting my body and testing my patience. I realize that my rapid growth in shadow force has created an imbalance with my swordsmanship. To master the stone, I must increase my aura output to match the density of my shadows. One afternoon, I feel a shift, my senses locking onto the microscopic grain of the metal. I strike, and for the first time, the stone sings a pure, unwavering note. Elder Jed approaches, handing out dossiers for our first intermediate missions. He hands me a file with a smirk, knowing fully well the trap hidden inside. My target is Alcaro Chanderer, a nobleman residing in the lawless city of Mamit. The catch is that Alcaro is a lover of Talaris Endorma, the ruler of the secret palace. Killing him would incur the wrath of a force that rivals the Runkandels, but refusing is not an option. It is a blatant setup by my sisters, designed to either get me killed or exiled. I accept the mission without hesitation, much to Jed's surprise. 2 days later, I prepare to depart, my hair dyed brown to conceal my identity. Gilly and Murakan see me off, concern etched on their faces. Gilly mentions it will be quiet with both of us gone, confirming Murakan will shadow me. I ride out, leaving the safety of the clan for the chaos of the outside world. Mamit is a festering pit of criminals, a place where the strong prey on the weak. I enter the Moonlight Well Inn, the local hub for scum and villainy. A hulking brute blocks my path, demanding a toll for the privilege of entering. I don't waste words. I grab his head and slam it into the table. The room goes silent as the thug collapses, the hierarchy of the inn instantly reshuffled. I take a seat and order a meal, I asking the bartender about my target. He tells me Alcaro is staying here, here, protected by elite guards from the secret palace. I scout the premises, noting that the guards are at least 6-star warriors. A direct assault is impossible. I need a way to eliminate him without engaging his protectors. I return to my room and formulate a plan to use magic, a skill no one expects from a Runkindel. By combining Lightning Call with Shadow Force, I can mimic a high-level spell. I cast the spell, guiding the bolt of dark lightning toward the target's suite. The inn erupts in a blinding flash, the explosion tearing through the upper floors. Chaos ensues as the building crumbles, burying the target and his guards. I emerge from the rubble, feigning injury and shock, blending in with the survivors. A woman with white hair descends from the sky, irradiating a terrifying icy pressure. It is Cirrus and Dorma, the daughter of the secret palace's ruler, come to investigate. She surveys the wreckage, convinced that a powerful sorcerer orchestrated the attack. She spots me limping and approaches, her expression softening slightly. Thinking I am just an innocent bystander, she applies a healing salve to my leg. I thank her, suppressing the urge to laugh at how perfectly my deception has worked. With the mission technically complete and my cover intact, I slip away into the night. Meanwhile, my faction members are engaged in their own mission, hunting orcs in a dense forest. They are exhausted and outnumbered, but they fight with a tenacity inspired by my example. From the shadows, Murakhan watches in his cat form, annoyed that he has to babysit them. A massive tremor shakes the ground, and a dark presence looms over the clearing. A tomb giant, an ancient construct of war, emerges from the trees, summoned by unknown means. The cadets freeze in terror, knowing they stand no chance against such a monster. Murakhan decides he has seen enough and sheds his feline disguise. He reverts to his true form, a dragon composed of living shadow, and devours the giant whole. The cadets stare in disbelief, unsure if they are hallucinating from fatigue. Days later, I return to the Garden of Swords, reuniting with my bewildered but alive faction. Elder Jed commends me on the success of the Mamit mission, his respect for me growing. The cadets gather around, eager to share their survival story, though they omit the dragon. Our celebration is interrupted by Kazin Romero, who approaches with a sneer. He refuses to believe the rumors of my success, convinced I used trickery or bribery. He draws his sword, challenging me to a duel right there in the training hall. I accept calmly, telling him I have no reason to go easy on him this time. Kazin attacks with full force, his blade coated in a thick layer of aura. To my eyes, his movements are sluggish, his openings glaringly obvious. I dodge his strikes with minimal movement, reading the trajectory of his sword before he swings. I step in, my own blade flashing with a blue light that silences the room. With a single, decisive strike, I shatter his defense and stop my blade inches from his neck. Kazin falls to his knees, his spirit broken by the overwhelming gap in our abilities. The hall erupts in whispers as the onlookers realize the truth of my power. From the balcony, but my siblings Miu and Anne watch, their expressions darkening with realization. News spreads like wildfire through the clan. The youngest son has become a 5-star knight at 15. I sit in my room, staring at the moon, knowing that this victory will only bring deadlier enemies. He stands by the window, contemplating the unique balance of powers that now reside within him. Gilly asks about the flowers she found, innocent tokens of a peace that rarely exists here. He instructs her to leave them, appreciating the small touch of color in his stark reality. He reflects on his recent revelation, knowing that his rapid rise to 5 stars will unsettle the hierarchy. He sits for a meal with Murakhan, discussing the inevitable political storm his progress will trigger. The cat warns him that humility might be a safer path, but safety is not the goal. Gilly mentions that the patriarch is expected to return soon, an event that mobilizes the entire estate. He realizes that the upcoming banquet will be the perfect stage to assert his new standing. The butler interrupts with urgency, announcing a new directive from the clan's leadership. He has been assigned a mission to the historic sites of Colin, a dangerous and politically charged zone. Elsewhere, Rosa Runkindel unleashes her fury upon the siblings who failed to contain their brother. Lunya, Ran, and Vuigo stand in silence, bearing the weight of their mother's disappointment. She accuses them of incompetence ones, furious that their schemes against the youngest backfired so spectacularly. Luntia tries to defend herself, citing the chaotic nature of the intermediate class assignments. Rosa dismisses their excuses, stating that true Runkandels thrive on chaos rather than complain about it. She imposes severe penalties, demanding they surrender their treasured weapons as punishment. He enters the hall, walking calmly into the midst of his siblings' humiliation. He asks if they expect him to plead for leniency on their behalf. Rosa turns her gaze to him, demanding to know how he intends to handle the dangerous mission ahead. He accepts the assignment to Colin without hesitation, declaring his intent to conquer the challenge. He questions his siblings' courage, mocking their attempts to sabotage him with such a clumsy trap. He points out that their interference has only served to sharpen his resolve. He proposes a deal. If he succeeds, the confiscated swords of his brothers will belong to him. Ran and Vuigo look on in shock as their mother considers the audacious request. Rosa agrees, granting him the spoils of war should he return alive. He leaves the hall, having turned a punishment into a lucrative opportunity. Outside, he meets the mercenaries assigned to his mission. Aunt's men clearly loyal to his hostile sisters. He accepts their greetings with a knowing smile, fully aware they are there to betray him. He reviews the mission parameters, noting the objective is to retrieve artifacts from Zyphal territory. The region is a historic ruin, a place where the Zyphal clan conducts their darker experiments. He recalls the history of oppression in the area, a legacy of cruelty hidden behind a mask of order. He knows from his past life that the Zyphals are desperate to find a specific mirror artifact. His goal is not just the mission, but to intercept that artifact before his enemies can secure it. He clenches his fist, determined to deny the Zyphal clan their prize. Later that night, the group sets up camp in the forest, the tension palpable. He distributes dried meat, watching the mercenaries closely as they eat. The drugs take effect quickly, the men clutching their throats as their vision blurs. They realize too late that the youngest Runcandle was never the prey. He stands over them, revealing that he swapped the food long before they sat down. He interrogates the leader, confirming their orders were to eliminate him during the mission. He silences them efficiently, leaving no loose ends to complicate his infiltration. He moves toward the warehouse, his path now clear of traitors. The lock on the door is simple, but he senses a magical trap beneath the surface. He uncovers a blood-fueled magic circle, a dark mechanism used to screen intruders. He realizes the circle filters for specific biological traits, likely to detect disease or bloodline. He uses the blood of an unconscious guard to bypass the ward, tricking the system. Inside, the guards transform into hulking monstrosities, their humanity stripped away by forbidden magic. They are biological golems, regenerating rapidly from every wound he inflicts. He engages them, his sword flashing in the dim light as he tests their defenses. A clean strike to the head fails to stop the beast, its flesh knitting back together in seconds. He realizes that standard lethal blows are useless against these abominations. He deduces they must have a core, a central weakness that sustains their regeneration. He dodges a massive fist, scanning the creature's body for the telltale glow of a core. The creature roars, its attacks growing more frantic and powerful. He spots the anomaly in the chest and drives his blade home. A crystal shatters, and the monster collapses, its life force instantly extinguished. He stares at the remains, disgusted by the realization that these were once human beings. He finishes off the second guard, clearing the room of threats. He inspects the bodies, confirming that the Zyphals are manufacturing living weapons. This discovery is far more dangerous than the mission itself, a secret that could spark a war. He retrieves the artifact he came for, a small stone that radiates a strange energy. Back at the main house, he reports his success, the weight of his discovery hidden behind a calm mask. He destroys the evidence of his methods, ensuring no one can trace the magic usage to him. He uses a burst of fire to incinerate the remaining traces, leaving nothing but ash. His return is met with silence, his success a stinging rebuke to those who wished him dead. Luna watches from the shadows, her expression unreadable but attentive. She later confronts the siblings, warning them that their petty games are over. Even the headmaid is impressed, noting that the balance of power is shifting. Rosa receives the report, her estimation of her youngest son rising with each victory. He returns to his room, greeted by Gilly and Murakan, who were anxiously waiting. He shows them the golem's heart, explaining the horrors he witnessed in Colin. He decides that he must must return there with Murakhan to investigate further. The next day, his training routine is interrupted by news of the Patriarch's arrival. Elder Jed informs him that he is excused from morning drills to prepare. The clan gathers in the courtyard, a sea of black uniforms awaiting their leader. Ciaran Runkindel arrives, his presence dominating the entire estate. He looks directly at his son, his gaze piercing through the crowd. He strides down the red carpet, a king returning to his kingdom. Rosa welcomes him, the tension between the two strongest figures palpable. Ciaran dismisses the formalities, eager to test the strength of his children. The banquet hall fills with light, signaling the start of the celebration. He adjusts his collar, stepping into his first official banquet as a recognized warrior. He recalls how in his past life he was hidden away during such events, a source of shame. Kieran addresses the guests, his voice booming across the vast hall. He stands alone, contemplating the fragile nature of the clan's dominance. His father approaches him, offering a rare moment of private conversation. They discuss the clan's future, the old lion testing the cub's wisdom. He speaks his mind, refusing to cower before the absolute ruler of the clan. Ciaran smiles, pleased by the audacity of his youngest son. He instructs him to stand by, hinting at a surprise announcement. A commotion at the entrance draws everyone's attention. The Zafel clan has arrived uninvited, a deliberate provocation. Andre Zafel, the minor patriarch, demands entry with his entourage. Ciaran orders Andre to be turned away but allows his 4 companions to enter. The banquet resumes, the tension now spiked with the presence of their rivals. Ciaran declares that any disputes tonight must be settled in the arena, not with words. He reminds everyone that Runkindels do not tolerate insults to their honor. He catches his father's eye, understanding the silent command to prove himself. He moves through the crowd, searching for the Zafel guests. The Tona twins huddle together, terrified of the atmosphere. A large man blocks his path, his demeanor dripping with condescension. It is Ugur of the Tuco clan, looking to make a name for himself by bullying a child. He grabs the man's head, crushing his bravado instantly. He warns Ugur that disrespect will be met with violence. The surrounding guests watch in shock as the boy dominates the veteran warrior. Ugur apologizes profusely, realizing he picked the wrong target. Luna appears, her presence parting the crowd like the sea. She speaks briefly with him before departing, her disinterest in the party evident. She bonks him on the head affectionately, a stark contrast to her icy demeanor. 2 strange figures enter the scene, a man in a red suit and a large, awkward man pushing a wheelchair. But he recognizes them as Bishka Liveliano and Bubara Gaston, dangerous variables. A woman with silver hair approaches him, offering a glass of wine. She introduces herself as Ciris Endorma, the daughter of the secret palace's ruler. He compliments her, acknowledging the immense power of her lineage. She drops the pleasantries, asking about the incident in Mamit. She accuses him of being involved in the explosion that nearly killed her subordinates. He denies it calmly, maintaining his cover as a sword-only warrior. Ciris, unconvinced and eager to test him, challenges him to a duel. They move to the arena, the crowd buzzing with excitement at the sudden match. Ciris attacks immediately, her blade coated in a freezing aura. He realizes she is using the Sword of Sea Ice, a technique unique to her bloodline. The temperature drops rapidly, ice crystals forming in the air around them. He parries her strike, feeling the heavy weight of her compressed aura. She shifts her stance, preparing a hidden move to overwhelm him. She unleashes Avalanche, a massive wave of freezing energy meant to crush him. He does not retreat. Instead, he steps into the storm, his own aura flaring. He meets the attack head-on, knowing that retreat would mean defeat. He stares down the incoming blast, his eyes narrowing as he refuses to flinch. The ice storm crashes into him, a blinding white explosion that silences the arena. As the frost clears, Ciris looks up, stunned to find him looming over her, unharmed. His blade stops inches from her face, the threat of violence dissolving into a calm mercy. He offers a hand, asking if she is all right, his demeanor shifting instantly from warrior to gentleman. He hands her a small jar of ointment, a subtle callback to their encounter in Mamit. Ciris realizes he recognized her all along and accepts her defeat with a mix of frustration and respect. They part ways, the duel establishing a strange bond between the 2 rising stars. The next day, the banquet atmosphere is quieter, the tension of the previous night lingering. He spots a familiar face in the crowd, the silver-haired boy from his memories. Veradine Zafel approaches him, grinning with an unsettling familiarity. He introduces himself again, though he knows the Runkindel youngest remembers him perfectly. He brushes off the mage's attempt at at friendliness, wary of the enemy clan's heir. Veridine persists, marveling at how a fool could become a 9-star sorcerer in the future. The mage boasts about his own progress, i.e. claiming to be a 6-star at the age of 18. Veridine reveals that he begged his uncle to bring him here solely to meet his rival. He promises that if he ever visits a Zyphal banquet, he will ensure his safety. He walks away, leaving the eccentric genius to his own devices. A sudden jolt interrupts his thoughts as a large man crashes into him. It is Bubar Gaston, a guest who seems out of place among the elite. Bubar begins to shout, causing a scene and insulting Luna's dignity with his crude admiration. He steps on the man's foot, silencing the outburst with a crushing pressure. He warns the man that bringing up his sister's name in such a way is a death sentence. Bubar screams, his bravado crumbling under the physical pain. Guards drag the screaming man away, but the incident draws the attention of a more dangerous figure. A man in a red suit steps forward, identifying himself as Bishkel Iveliano. He explains that Bubare is part of his entourage, a necessary aid for his disabled sister. Bishkel challenges him to a duel, demanding satisfaction for the insult to his guest. He accepts immediately, seeing an opportunity to test himself against a 7-star knight. The crowd gathers again, eager to see if the youngest can perform another miracle. Bishkel grabs Bubar by the collar, furious that the fool forced this confrontation. The duel begins on the bridge, the night air filled with the hum of tension. Bishkel attacks, his blade moving with a heaviness that belies his elegant appearance. He blocks the strike, the impact vibrating through his bones. He realizes that Bishkel is holding back, testing the waters before committing to a kill. He decides to force the issue, unleashing his full speed to close the gap. Their swords clash repeatedly, sparks flying as steel meets steel. He is pushed back, the difference in their star levels becoming apparent in a contest of strength, but he senses a rhythm in Bishkel's attacks, a pattern he can exploit. He activates the Blade of the Heart, his senses expanding to see the fatal flaw in his opponent's guard. He strikes, his blade bypassing the defense and aiming for the jaw. Bishkel's sword shatters, the metal unable to withstand the precision of the counter. He stops his blade a fraction of an inch from Bishkel's throat. The 7-star knight collapses, defeated not by power, but by superior technique. He wakes up 2 days later in his room, Gilly and Murakan hovering over him. He learns that the banquet has ended. Ani and his victory is the talk of the clan. The elders are astounded that a 5-star knight could defeat a 7-star veteran. Gilly informs him that the patriarch has summoned him to the crypts. He walks down the dark corridors, the silence of the honored dead surrounding him. Caron waits by a massive statue, his back turned, contemplating history. He asks if his son knows why the first patriarch, Tamar, has no grave here. Caron reveals the dark truth. The Zyphal gods cursed the run candles to lose their magic. The clan was forced into a humiliating pact, forbidden from wielding mana or honoring their founder. This curse is why every run candle born since has been unable to use magic until now. Charon acknowledges Soldere's contract, seeing his son as the key to breaking the shackles. He offers him a choice: stay and fight his siblings, or leave and prove himself to the world. He gives him 5 years to build a reputation as a reserve flag bearer. He accepts the challenge, eager to escape the suffocating walls of the garden. He leaves the crypts, his path now clear and his freedom secured. He meets Gilly outside, promising to protect her for the next 5 years and beyond. 5 years pass in a blink, the seasons changing as he grows into a young man. He stands in a forest, older and stronger, preparing for the next phase of his journey. They arrive at the gates of the Jian Kingdom, a neutral territory teeming with opportunity. A familiar face greets him, Sharon Runkandel, watching from the shadows one last time. He enters the city, his identity concealed beneath a hooded cloak. His goal is to build a reputation without relying on the Runkandel name. He recalls rumors of unregistered sorcerers causing trouble in the area. A criminal syndicate called Tessing runs the underground here. They operate an auction house where rare items and secrets are sold. He decides to infiltrate the syndicate to secure resources for his growth. But first, they need money, as he was only allowed to bring limited funds. They find Sember Bill, the noble he rescued years ago, now living quietly in the capital. Sember is terrified at first, mistaking the hooded figure for an assassin. He reveals his face, and Sember's fear turns to overwhelming gratitude. He asks for a small loan, but Sember insists on giving him a fortune. With funds secured, the group enjoys a lavish meal, celebrating their freedom. However, Murakan eats too much and falls ill. forcing them to delay their flight. They decide to travel by carriage to the Arkan Kingdom instead. Arkan is Zyphal territory, a dangerous place for a Runkandel to wander, but the Luthero Magic Federation controls it, making it a hub for sorcerers. He spots a black cat wandering the streets, Murakan in his disguise. They arrive at the portal station, using fake IDs provided by the clan. The teleportation takes them deep into enemy territory. Arkan feels darker than he remembers, the oppression of the Syndicate palpable. People on the streets look hopeless, fear etched into their faces. They seek lodgings at an inn run by a man named Jetu. Jetu greets them with a greasy smile, his eyes scanning them for value. He recognizes Jetu as a notorious swindler from his past life. Jetu offers them a special orange juice, a classic trap for unsuspecting travelers. Gilly sniffs the drink, detecting the drug immediately. He kicks Jetu in the face, shattering the man's glasses and his scheme. He pins the innkeeper to the floor, demanding to know about the auction house. Jetu, terrified by the sudden violence, confesses everything. He reveals that Tessing deals in slaves, drugs, and stolen artifacts. Jetu begs for mercy, promising to be their guide if they spare him. He agrees, knowing that a local rat is useful for navigating the sewers. They prepare for the auction, Jetu leading them to the secret entrance. The auction house is a grand underground palace, filled with the worst of society. He spots Veradine Zyphal in the crowd, the mage looking bored and dangerous. He keeps his hood up, blending into the shadows to avoid detection. Jetu hands them masks, a necessary precaution in this den of thieves. He learns that the leader of Tessing is a man named Spider-Hand Alu, but he suspects a Runkandel might be secretly backing the operation. He shares his plan with Gilly and Murakan. They will buy key items to draw attention. The auction begins, the crowd cheering as the first item is revealed. Slaves are brought out, their eyes dull with despair. He waits, letting the minor items pass until a specific magic tome appears. It is the Tome of Chen Mi, a legendary sorcerer thought to be a myth. The bidding starts low, most people assuming it is a fake. He raises his paddle, bidding 150 gold coins to silence the room. He wins the tome for 200 gold, securing a powerful artifact for a steal. Veradine notices the purchase, his interest piqued by the mysterious buyer. Jetu panics, realizing that attracting a Zyphal's attention is a death wish. When Veradine sends a servant to invite the buyer to a private meeting, he realizes he cannot avoid the confrontation and decides to play along. He steps into the private box, finding himself face to face with his rival. Veradine smiles, sensing a familiar energy, unaware that the stranger is the boy he promised to protect. The man questions his identity, skeptical of the bold claim. He responds with a swift slap, silencing the doubt with immediate violence. He asks if this situation seems like a joke, his hand engulfed in flames. He demands to know if the man before him is Alu. The subordinate denies it, terrified by the display of magic. He orders the man to summon his boss, threatening total destruction. Alu arrives quickly, prostrating himself on the floor in fear. The bald leader apologizes profusely, believing the ruse completely. In a flashback, he recalls the plan to impersonate Veradine Zyphal. Gilly worries about the repercussions of such a dangerous deception. Back in the present, he holds up a ledger, demanding an explanation. Alu stammers, realizing the gravity of his illicit trades. He admits to selling ancient magic tomes without the Zyphal clan's permission. He asserts that the Zyphal clan will handle the recovery of the items personally. He demands the full transaction logs and client lists immediately. He threatens that if the Zyphals find anything amiss, the syndicate will be erased. Alu orders his men to fetch the documents, desperate to appease the minor patriarch. While waiting, Murakan rummages through the shelves, bored by the drama. He finds a specific box he was looking for among the clutter. Inside rests a helmet artifact, the Rune of Mayulta. Alu returns with the list, presenting it with trembling hands. He takes the documents, his objective secured. He warns Alu to keep everyone inside until he departs. The group leaves the room, leaving the terrified criminals behind. He asks Jetu about his family, preparing the guide for what comes next. He advises Jetu to run to the Viminth Empire immediately to survive. He reveals that he is not actually Veradine Zyphal. A subordinate rushes to Alu, delivering news from their insider. The insider confirms that the real Veradine has long silver hair. Alu realizes he has been played and explodes in rage. Back outside, the group prepares to leave the area. Alu catches up to them, his face twisted with fury. He vows to skin them alive for the humiliation. He holds up the ledger, revealing the true depth of his trap. He announces that he has already distributed the list to the world via magic mail. The Zyphal clan and the the Empire will descend upon the Syndicate by tomorrow. Alu charges, realizing his organization is doomed regardless. The Syndicate members attack, but desperate and cornered. He parries a strike, his sword moving with practiced ease. He unleashes a burst of energy, knocking back the first wave. The sheer force of his aura surprises the attackers. He casts a fire spell, creating a massive explosion in their midst. He mocks their weakness, noting their spells are below 5 stars. A barrier forms around them, blocking the incoming magic. Luna's pendant proves its worth, shielding them from harm. He pushes forward, his sword cutting through the enemy ranks. He steps over the fallen, his gaze fixed on the leader. Alu screams, demanding to know who sent him. He ignores the question, his blade coated in dark energy. Their weapons clash, sparks flying in the night air. He recognizes Alu as a 7-star martial artist. He dodges a heavy strike, feeling the wind of the blade. He realizes the difference in their raw power levels. Alu uses an artifact to amplify his attacks, creating a fire orb. Murakhan asks if he should intervene. Alu unleashes a massive beam of energy. He deflects it with a technique that surprises the veteran. He calls down lightning, infusing his blade with elemental power. The lightning crashes into Alu, shattering his defense. He swings his sword, the impact cracking the ground. Alu struggles to maintain his guard against the relentless assault. He activates the helmet artifact, the rune of Myalta. The helmet forms a shadowy visor, masking his presence. Alu strikes, but the blade passes through a shadow. He reappears behind the leader, ready to strike. His sword pierces Alu's shoulder, drawing blood. He identifies the helmet as a legendary artifact lost to history. It was created by a demoness named Myalta for an ancient emperor. Alu coughs up blood, realizing he is outmatched by the equipment. He looks down at the defeated leader. Alu recognizes him as the youngest Runkandel. He mentions a master and a failed plan involving the clan. He deduces that Alu was a pawn in the succession war. He suspects his brother Joshua is the one pulling the strings. Gilly warns him not to get careless despite the victory. They leave the scene, the syndicate effectively dismantled. They decide to head to the free city of Tikan next. Their goal is to contact the 7-Colored Bird Intelligence Network. He plans to use Tikan as a base of operations. A week later, they arrive at the vibrant port city. Tikan is a neutral territory, free from the influence of major clans. Now Murakhan transforms into his human form in a quiet alley. A young girl witnesses the transformation, eyes wide with shock. She insists she saw a cat turn into a man. He tries to deny it, offering her a sweet treat as a bribe. They realize the girl is lost and decide to help her. Guards arrive, frantically searching for the chief's daughter. A man with a scar on his face steps forward. He introduces himself as Elisa Badger, but corrects it to the chief. He introduces himself as Jin Gray, a traveler. The chief gives them a recommendation letter for an inn as thanks. They settle into the high-end accommodation. Gilly is pleased with the luxury, a rare treat for them. Murakhan relaxes on the bed, enjoying the comfort. He announces his plan to find the leader of the 7-Colored Bird. The leader is known as Kashmir, the Phantom Sword. Suddenly, the door bursts open. Kashmir enters, his aura flaring with intensity. He asks why they approached his daughter. Gilly tries to intervene, but Kashmir is on edge. Murakhan releases his dragon pressure, filling the room with darkness. He steps between them, calming the situation. He asks Kashmir to lower his weapon. He greets the Phantom Sword formally. He reveals his true name, Jin Runkandel. Kashmir is stunned by the revelation. He points out that a dragon would not partner with a mere criminal. He asks Kashmir why he came looking for a dragon. He offers a trade, a secret for a secret. Kashmir admits his daughter, Yulia, saw the transformation. He explains that Yulia is a contractor of Asmil, the god of the eye. She has the ability to see the future, which is slowly driving her mad. He reveals that he is the leader of the 7-Colored Bird. He deduced their identity because Asmil requested help for her young contractor. Murakhan refuses to help, citing ancient dragon rules. Kashmir stares at him, desperate and pleading. He steps in, agreeing to help find Yulia's guardian dragon. He asks if Tikan is truly neutral. He decides to utilize the dragon's knowledge to locate the missing guardian. They travel to a cabin in the forest outside Viminth's capital. A silver-haired woman greets them. She is Quikentel, the silver dragon of time. Murakami freezes, realizing who she is. She is his former lover, and she is furious. A massive blue dragon manifests in the sky. Quiquintel transforms, her dragon form radiating power. She demands to know why he has returned after 1,000 years. Murakami tries to play it cool, but he is clearly intimidated. He realizes this is a lover's quarrel of epic proportions. Quiquintel reveals she is awoken to handle urgent matters. She mentions the missing earth dragons, Rabus and Untiel. She explains she was Quiquintel's lover for 500 years. Murakami urges them to leave before she kills him. Quiquintel lands, reverting to her human form, seething with anger. She reveals that her dragons have been missing for 500 years. She accuses him of being heartless for not caring about their kin. She prepares to attack, her mana flaring dangerously. She gathers her energy for a single, critical blow, knowing anything less will fail. A massive blade of mana forms in the sky, threatening to cleave the earth itself. Murakami warns him that it is too late to run, his voice grim. He raises Bradamante, the sword glowing with a defiant dark light. The attack crashes down, an explosion of blue energy that engulfs the clearing. He blocks the shockwave, his feet digging furrows into the ground as he slides back. As the dust settles, he realizes that his intervention bought them a moment of respite. He questions why she would want to kill him, feigning ignorance of her grudge. The dragon roars, insulted by his casual dismissal of their history. She mocks Murakami, telling him he has no idea how weak he has become. He tries to de-escalate, suggesting they end the fight for old time's sake. She screams in rage, the sound echoing like thunder across the valley. He dashes forward, knowing he cannot let her charge another massive attack. He releases his shadow force, coating the area in a suffocating darkness. His sword strikes her scales, eyes a shower of sparks illuminating the night. He wonders if he has just become a dragon slayer, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Murakami corrects him, stating that a dragon of time is not so easily killed. The battle pauses as Quiquintel reverts to her human form, her anger simmering but controlled. She screams about their breakup, revealing the pettiness behind the fury. Murakami transforms into his human guise, looking sheepish and defensive. She notices his companion and asks if the human is a contractor of Solderay. She demands to know why the lives of dragons suddenly matter to him now. She reminds him that he once killed a dragon solely for his brother's revenge. He finally explains that Bioretta, the wind dragon, took one of her kin. He offers a truce, suggesting they can help each other retrieve the missing dragons. She agrees to take them to her place, though her hostility lingers. Inside her cabin, they sit for tea, the atmosphere tense and awkward. She identifies him as Jin Run Candle, noting the resemblance to his ancestor. She explains that his energy feels exactly like Tamar's did 1,000 years ago. She elaborates on the situation. Bioretta took a dragon named Latri a year ago. She suspects Bioretta has an ulterior motive related to the Zayfel clan. He deduces that the Zayfels have two things to gain from kidnapping dragons. First, they can eliminate divine contractors who threaten their dominance. Second, they can force contracts with gods by killing the existing contractors. Murakami scoffs at the Zayfel's audacity, his pride as a dragon flaring up. Quiquintel decides to contact Bioretta, setting a trap to uncover the truth. Suddenly, the door bursts open, interrupting their strategy session. A girl with purple hair stands there, confused by the strange gathering. She introduces herself as Enya, the contractor of Ulta, the god of time. Upon hearing his name, Enya's eyes widen in disbelief and excitement. She is a massive fan, her previous confusion replaced by adoration. She grabs his hand, beaming with a joy that seems out of place in this grim reality. He realizes that Enya is likely a target and asks her to come with them for safety. She agrees immediately, stating she would follow him even to the Runkandel dungeons. He tells Quiquintel that protecting Enya is now a priority. Enya stares at him with an intensity that borders on obsession. She claims that the situation sounds romantic, viewing the danger through rose-tinted glasses. So a knock on the door shatters the moment, signaling the arrival of uninvited guests. A man in a mask stands outside, his presence radiating a quiet threat. Before they can react, he grabs Enya, moving with terror terrifying speed. Quiquintel demands he let the girl go, her magic flaring up. The man reveals himself as the leader of the Vimenth Special Task Force. He warns that killing him will only summon more agents. Quiquintel attacks, refusing to be intimidated in her own home. He recognizes the man as Lats, a codename for Kashmir, the Phantom Sword. The leader apologizes for the intrusion, claiming he had to verify their identities. He decides to leave, a strange mercy that puzzles everyone. Before disappearing, he warns them that their actions have consequences. Later, Kashmir expresses his frustration at having to hide his true feelings to protect Enya. Quiquintel confirms that she has sent word to Buretta to meet. 1 week later, the group prepares for the confrontation. They stand outside the cabin, the tension palpable as the deadline approaches. The meeting is set for tomorrow night on an uninhabited island. The sea churns around the rocky outcrop, a fitting stage for a battle of monsters. Andre Zeifel appears, his presence commanding the very air around him. He introduces himself as the minor patriarch and the contractor of Melzaya, the god of wind. Buretta, the wind dragon, descends from the sky, landing beside his master. Quiquintel demands to know where Latri is. Buretta smirks, claiming that Latri is doing well in their care. He offers a deal. Hand over the contractor of Ulta, and they will be spared. Andre releases his mana, revealing he is a 9-star sorcerer. He declares his intent to enjoy crushing the silver dragon of time. Quiquintel dodges a blast of wind, taking to the sky in her dragon form. Buretta transforms as well, his green scales shimmering with mana. He declares that the air and wind in this place belong to him. He summons a lightning storm, the sky turning a violent green. Quiquintel is struck, the bolt tearing through her defenses. A halo appears above her head as she activates her divine power. Time stops, the lightning freezing mid-strike in a surreal display. Andre mocks her effort, noting the immense strain it puts on her. Buretta breaks through the time freeze, his raw power overwhelming her control. He slams into her, his claws tearing at her silver scales. Quiquintel fights back, but the difference in their condition is clear. Andre tells his dragon to shut up and watch, preparing his own attack. He raises a dark artifact, a stone that pulses with ominous energy. He recognizes it as the Origin Stone, a safeguard created by the gods. A demon's face manifests from the stone, laughing maniacally. The stone was meant to prevent destruction, but now it is a weapon of chaos. A flash of light blinds them as the artifact activates. Murakhan steps in front of the blast, shielding the others with his body. The impact slams him into the ground, burying him in rubble. He struggles to rise, his weakened state making him vulnerable. Buretta looms over him, mocking the legend for his frailty. A beam of energy shoots from the wind dragon's mouth. He dashes forward, refusing to let his friend die. Bradamante is charged with every ounce of shadow force he can muster. Buretta looks surprised by the sudden interference of a human. The dragon's tail whips around, slamming into him with bone-breaking force. He coughs blood but keeps his grip on his sword. He strikes the dragon's scales, but his blade barely leaves a scratch. A voice cuts through the chaos, asking if he ran into something he couldn't handle. He looks up to see a figure descending from the sky. Luna Runkendel lands, her presence instantly shifting the balance of the battlefield. She greets him as baby brother, her tone calm despite the carnage. Andre's eyes widen as he recognizes the strongest woman in the world. She deflects Buretta's next attack with a casual swing of her weapon. Andre stammers, realizing that the white whale has joined the fray. He thanks her, a relief washing over him as he realizes he is safe. She demands an explanation from the Zeifels for attacking her brother. Andre accuses the Runkandels of breaking their non-aggression pact. A massive demon form erupts from the Origin Stone, aiming for Luna. She smiles, unimpressed by the ancient evil. She tells him that her clan will never hear of this incident because no one will leave alive. She slashes, her aura tearing through the demon form like paper. She declares that every Zeifel she meets is all talk and no action. She turns her gaze to Buretta, asking if he plans to stay in that big form. She notes that the power coming from the stone feels more like demonic energy than magic. Andre clutches the stone, realizing his trump card is failing. Luna charges, her spear glowing with a blinding light. Her attack collides with the combined force of the Zephyls, a massive explosion consuming the island. The collision creates a shockwave that tears through the surroundings. He watches as the green-haired enemy struggles against the overwhelming power. The finishing move, a meteor shower, descends with catastrophic force. A blinding light engulfs the area as the attack lands. The impact obliterates the ground, leaving nothing but devastation in its wake. Andre stares in horror as his defenses crumble before the onslaught. He realizes too late that he is facing a force beyond his comprehension. The sheer magnitude of the energy defies all logic and reason. He screams for survival, clinging to a desperate hope. The explosion consumes him, silencing his defiance in an instant. She stands amidst the destruction, her expression calm and unbothered. He looks at his sister, awestruck by the demonstration of absolute strength. She turns to him, her terrifying aura fading into a gentle concern. The massive demon form disintegrates, its core shattered by the blow. He realizes they need to leave immediately before more enemies arrive. Murakun urges them to move. Sensing the instability of the area, he reflects on his own weakness compared to the display he just witnessed. He clenches his fist, swearing to never feel this helpless again. She praises his survival, proud that he held his own for so long. He vows to reach the same heights. Using this memory as fuel, Murakun reverts to his spirit form, exhausted but alive. She points out that the enemy was using a forbidden artifact. She explains that the Origin Stone allows mortals to mimic gods. It is a weapon created to keep divine beings in check. He notes the ominous red aura lingering around the debris. The battle concludes. "I am leaving a scarred landscape as proof of the conflict." He reaches out to her, grateful for her timely intervention. She accepts his gratitude but reminds him of the danger he was in. News of the island's destruction reaches the Imperial Palace. The report mentions a mysterious vortex and the presence of dragons. Investigators confirm the death of the wind dragon, Bayaretta. The Emperor receives the news with a grim expression. He orders his special task force to investigate the incident quietly. Meanwhile, the group gathers in a safe house to recover. Kashmir is furious about the damage to his property and the risk to his family. He learns that the Origin Stone fragments were lost in the sea. He suspects that someone else might have intervened to steal them. They discuss the possibility of a third party being involved. He returns to the main room, finding his companions waiting. Jilly rushes to greet him, relief washing over her face. She faints from the sheer stress of worrying about him. He catches her, realizing how much burden he places on his people. Kashmir welcomes them back, though his expression is serious. He introduces Luna to the Phantom Sword, a meeting of legends. Kashmir bows respectfully. Honored to meet the strongest swordswoman, Quicantel enters, her presence adding to the room's tension. She demands to know where Enya is, her patience wearing thin. He reveals that the dragon Latri has returned safely. However, Latri has no memory of his abduction. He concludes that the Zephyls erased the evidence to cover their tracks. He explains the true nature of the enemy's plan involving the Origin Stone. They are gathering power to challenge the gods themselves. Kashmir offers them rest, promising to handle the local fallout. Later, he discusses his next move with his sister and Jilly. She warns him that the clan will eventually find out about his involvement. He proposes a bold plan to visit their father immediately. She is shocked by his audacity to return to the Garden of Swords so soon. He insists that facing the patriarch now is the best option. She agrees to accompany him as a shield against the family's wrath. The next day, they arrive at the Runkandal estate. His siblings watch from the ramparts, confused by his sudden return. He walks openly through the gates, escorted by the first flag bearer. The guards hesitate, unsure whether to stop a reserve flag bearer. His brother approaches, demanding an explanation for the rule violation. He points a finger, accusing him of disrespecting clan law. Luna steps in, silencing the objection with a cold glare. She states that he is here to see the patriarch personally. His siblings are left stunned as the pair continues toward the main hall. He draws his sword, sensing a test from the guards ahead. Luna intervenes again, forcing the guards to stand down. A high-ranking guardian knight blocks their path. The knight demands they surrender their weapons before entering. Luna refuses, her aura flaring to assert her dominance. The knight retreats, unwilling to fight the white whale. They enter the inner sanctum, the atmosphere heavy with pressure. The patriarch stands waiting, his back turned to them. He turns to face his son, his gaze piercing, glowing and unreadable. He unleashes a wave of aura, testing his son's resolve instantly. He withstands the pressure, refusing to buckle under the weight. The patriarch demands to know why he has returned early. He answers that he has come to report a significant event. The patriarch smiles, amused by his son's confidence. He asks if he has grown soft during his time outside. He presents the news of Andrei Zeifel's death. The patriarch is intrigued. Knowing his son was involved, he explains the details of the Origin Stone replica. The patriarch acknowledges the threat it poses to the balance of power. He asks if Murakami was the one who identified the artifact. The patriarch laughs, revealing he knew about the dragon all along. He forgives the rule violation in exchange for the valuable intelligence. He asks what reward his son desires for this service. He requests that Tikhon be declared a protected territory. The patriarch narrows his eyes, assessing the strategic value. He grants the request, binding Tikhon's fate to the clan. Kashmir bows before the patriarch, sealing the alliance. The patriarch declares that no Runkandel may enter Tikhon without permission. He thanks his father, securing his base of operations. Outside, he meets Kashmir, who is terrified by the encounter. He assures Kashmir that everything went according to plan. 1 month later, he is back in Tikhon. Training in the underground hall, he spars against a muscular woman with gray hair. She defeats him effortlessly, pointing her sword at his throat. This is Elisa Badger, Kashmir's wife and a former Special Forces agent. She offers to spar again, pushing him to his limits. He analyzes his defeat, trying to learn from her movements. She reveals she has mastered both swordsmanship and magic. Enya watches from the sidelines, cheering for him. He feels ashamed of his repeated losses but refuses to quit. He challenges Elisa again, determined to land a hit. She accepts, warning him that she won't go easy. They clash, their weapons moving in a blur of speed. He is knocked back, his defense broken by her superior strength. He flies through the air, crashing into the wall. He reflects on his rapid growth over the past months. He realizes that his aura and mana are finally syncing. A letter arrives from the seven-colored bird. It contains information about a new threat or opportunity. He reads about the death of Andrei being officially announced. Rumors spread that the Zeifels are blaming internal conflict. He learns that the Runkandels are benefiting from the chaos. He continues his training, focusing on synergy between his powers. The next day, he prepares to spar again. He launches a surprise attack using Shadow Force. Elisa dodges, impressed by his sudden improvement. He uses a flash spell to blind her momentarily. She compliments his strategy but counters immediately. He is defeated again, but the gap is closing. Later, he walks through the snowy streets of Tikhon. Kashmir approaches him with new information. He listens intently as Kashmir shares intelligence about a man named Bubar Gaston. Bubar is an officer in Kinsalo, a connection that hints at a larger conspiracy. He wonders why an 8-star martial artist like Bishkul would join such a group. Nearby, Murakami suffers the indignity of being a playmate for Yulia. He shifts the topic to Spider Hand Alu, asking if any new info has surfaced. Kashmir admits that Alu is shrouded in mystery, his past a blank slate. He suspects someone is intentionally covering Alu's tracks to hide a connection. Kashmir thanks him for his hard work, acknowledging the young master's efforts. He waves off the thanks, stating he is the one indebted to Kashmir. Kashmir suggests he take a break to play with Yulia, seeing Murakami's struggle. He politely declines, citing his rigorous training schedule. He reveals he has discovered something interesting that might help his growth. 2 days later, he stands ready in the training hall, facing Elisa again. He begins a summoning ritual, blue mana swirling around his feet. A bird composed of blue flames emerges from the circle. It is Tess, a phoenix from the fire realm. Suda summon for 6-star sorcerers. He shocks Elisa by revealing he has formed a contract with the rare blue phoenix. He enters the fray, his sword coated in the blue flames of his new ally. He launches a strike, the added power of the fire boosting his speed. Elisa blocks, noting the heavy pressure radiating from the flames. He pushes the offensive, knowing he can only maintain the summon for 3 minutes. Elisa dodges a fiery slash, realizing this is not a sword technique, but a spell. The blue flames grant him dominance in the clash, forcing her back. He presses his advantage, unleashing a wave of blue fire. He attacks with a fiery palm strike, aiming for a decisive blow. He combines his sword and magic, driving Elisa into a defensive posture. He misses a strike, and Elisa counters, exploiting the opening. He coughs up blood, and the toll control of the high-level magic catching up to him. He refuses to yield, his determination burning as bright as his flames. But the spar ends with him on the floor, defeated once again. Elisa thanks him for the match, genuinely impressed by his progress. Suddenly, Murakan enters the room and spots the bluebird. He demands the kid send the summon back, clearly agitated. Tess stares at the dragon, its gaze unblinking and unimpressed. The bird pecks Murakan on the forehead, a gesture of disrespect. Murakan screams in frustration, humiliated by the small creature. He explains that Tess's true form is massive and terrifying, visible only in the fire realm. The name Tess is merely a convenience. His true name is unknown, even to gods. He notes that gods cannot use their full power in other realms, a universal rule. Murakan relays a message from the bird. Tess likes the young contractor. He feels confident that with Tess, the Run Candles can one day challenge the Zyphals. Months pass, and on January 2nd, 1796, the Patriarch receives a report. The letter details his rapid improvement in swordsmanship and magic. Sharon Runkandel reads it with a rare look of satisfaction. His guardian knight informs him of a new development regarding Ron Hiron. A hit order has been placed on a pirate participating in the Arena of the Cosmos. He learns that Dante Hiron, Ron's grandson, will be there. He tells Kashmir to prepare for a trip first thing in the morning. They arrive at an island south of Belardo, the venue for the tournament. The Arena of the Cosmos is a brutal survival game, with no restrictions on killing. He enters a shady building to register. The atmosphere thick with malice. He approaches the desk where a large man is counting coins. The registrar dismisses him rudely, telling him to get lost. He slams a bag of gold on the table, silencing the man's complaints. He smashes the man's face into the desk for good measure. The registrar laughs, amused by the violence rather than angered. He receives his assignment, Group 13. A poster on the wall reveals the host, Cosmos, the Pirate King. He walks into the holding area, spotting another familiar face. Veradine Zyphal is there, likely watching for the same reason he is. Other participants glare at him, sensing fresh meat. The holding area is a dungeon where fighters are crammed together. A man blocks his path, claiming the spot is taken. He grips his sword, giving the man a 3-second warning. The man refuses to move, mocking his size. A burst of energy explodes and the man falls. His head rolls on the floor, sliced clean off by an unseen strike. The other fighters stare in shock, realizing the kid is a monster. He steps over the body, warning the others not to disturb his rest. He sits against the wall, taking out a book to read amidst the carnage. A man advises him to watch the matches, as Group 1 is starting. He follows the crowd to the arena stands. Rumors circulate about a reserve flag bearer participating. Cosmos announces the start of the tournament, reveling in the chaos. The first match begins, featuring a pirate named Mantis. His opponent is a young blonde man introduced as Paul Mick. He recognizes the boy immediately, despite the fake name. The match starts, and Mantis charges with dual axes. Paul Mick stands still, his hand resting casually on his sword hilt. In a split second, Mantis collapses, defeated. The crowd goes silent, unable to comprehend the speed of the attack. He confirms his suspicion. That technique belongs to the Hiron clan. The boy is Dante Hiron, the genius heir of the Sword Emperor. The crowd erupts in cheers, chanting the fake name Paul Mick. He notices Veradine Zyphal in the stands, also watching Dante. He bets a massive sum on Paul Mick, confident in the outcome. Veradine spots him and is surprised to see Jin Gray here. Dante reunites with Veradine, happy to see a familiar face. Dante is pleased to have eliminated a villain, viewing his participation as justice. He returns to the holding area, finding it cleaned of bodies. Cosmos descends from the sky, kicking off the next round of matches. It is time for Group 13. And Jin Gray is called up. He enters the arena, dragging his sword behind him. The match begins, and he unleashes a storm of power. He returns to the cell, exhausted but victorious. He pretends to sleep, but his senses are fully alert. Someone approaches his cell with quiet footsteps. A figure enters, and he prepares to strike. It is Dante Hiron, looking for a place to rest away from the noise. Dante asks if he can share the cell, polite despite the setting. Suddenly, a poisoned bolt flies from the shadows. He snatches the bolt out of the air before it hits Dante. Dante is stunned, realizing he was the target of an assassination. Assassins emerge from the darkness, realizing their cover is blown. Dante thanks him profusely, pledging a life for a life. Dante falls asleep instantly, trusting his new friend to keep watch. He smiles, amused by the naive trust trust of the Hiran heir. The next day, the tournament continues with intensified violence. The pirates plot to fix the matches to ensure the two kids meet in the finals. Cosmos agrees, seeing the potential for massive betting profits. The announcer calls for Paul Mick and Jin Gray to advance. He steps into the arena for the final match, the crowd roaring. Dante stands opposite him, his expression serious. The final match begins. Their swords clash, a shockwave shaking the entire stadium. They exchange blows at blinding speed, sparks flying like fireworks. Dante uses a technique to accelerate in short bursts. He matches Dante's speed, his own movements a blur. He compliments Dante, acknowledging his skill. He realizes Dante is using superior stamina to stall him. He decides to reveal his true strength. He slams his sword down, the impact cracking the arena floor. He stops holding back and announces his true name, Jin Run Candle. Dante smiles, accepting the challenge as Dante Hiran. They clash again, the force of their collision far greater than before. He unleashes a heavy strike, forcing Dante to defend with all his might. Dante is pushed back, shocked by the weight behind the blow. He presses the attack, his eyes glowing with intensity. He declares that he is the 13th of the Run Candles. He stares down his rival, sensing a kindred spirit in the battle. The blades cross, creating a spark that ignites the air between them. He stares into his opponent's eyes, seeing a turbulence of emotions swirling within. He realizes that the intensity driving Dante is not rage, but a desperate need to prove himself. He swings his sword, meeting the overwhelming force of the Hiran heir. Their weapons collide again, sending a shockwave through the arena. A sickening crack echoes, but it does not come from their steel. He watches in horror as cracks begin to form on Dante's physical body. He hesitates, knowing that withdrawing his blade now would be an insult to his rival's resolve. Dante swings one last time, his movements sluggish and heavy. The blonde swordsman collapses, his body unable to withstand the aura overload. He catches his falling rival, preventing him from hitting the hard ground. Dante apologizes weakly, his consciousness fading into darkness. A figure leaps from the stands, landing beside them with a burst of green energy. It is Veradine Zyphel, his expression uncharacteristically serious. He declares that Dante's body is breaking apart from the inside. Veradine pulls out a glowing red artifact, its power radiating intensely. He identifies it as the Blood of Numerous, a legendary item capable of miraculous healing. Veradine feeds the drop to Dante, the red light instantly enveloping the injured man. The cracks on Dante's skin begin to seal, the divine energy repairing the damage. Veradine explains that this artifact was meant for an emergency, but this qualifies. He asks for silence regarding this act, as the Zyphel and Hiran clans are not allies. Dante wakes up, Ani confused by the sudden restoration of his vitality. Later, the three of them gather at a tavern, an unlikely trio of rival heirs. Veradine hands him a box, claiming it contains a gift for the winner. He opens it to find a crude, hand-drawn map. Veradine jokes that they are friends and enemies simultaneously. He mentions his mission to hunt down an impersonator within the Zyphel territory. Veradine departs, leaving the two swordsmen to ponder the strange encounter. A letter is sent to the Runcandle Patriarch, detailing the victory and the new alliance. The Patriarch receives the news with a stoic expression, acknowledging his son's growth. Days later, the group arrives at a safe house in Takan to study the map. Murakhan examines the parchment, sensing an ancient and familiar energy. Yulia, Kashmir's daughter, Onyu excitedly asks to see the treasure map. Murakhan points out strange markings that resemble an ancient language. Yulia touches the map and suddenly screams, her eyes glowing with divine light. The room fills with a blue aura as the young seer enters a trance. She speaks of a past filled with sorrow and a people crying out for help. Murakhan explains that the map points to Kolan, a land isolated from the world. He reveals that the Zyphels invaded Kolan centuries ago in search of a divine artifact. The natives were enslaved and slaughtered when they refused to yield. He realizes the map is a plea for help from the survivors of that massacre. Kashmir asks for orders. Ready to mobilize the seven-colored bird, he decides to head to Kolan immediately, sensing a race against time. 2 weeks later, they arrive at a town near the restricted zone. He walks through the streets, disguise to avoid attention. A drunk man bumps into him, stumbling in the dark alley. The man introduces himself as a journalist named Dino Jaglin. Dino claims to have information about the restricted area. He notices shadows watching them from the rooftops. He asks Dino to lead them to the contact mentioned in the rumors. They follow the journalist to a hidden underground chamber. A woman wearing a blindfold greets them, her presence radiating a holy aura. Murakami recognizes her energy as that of a medium, a vessel for a god. She introduces herself as the current priestess of the native tribe. She confirms that the Zyphals are close to finding the mirror, the divine artifact. He notices hidden eyes watching them from the shadows of the room. The sign outside the forest warns that the area is off limits. They enter the forest, moving silently through the trees. He observes that there are no guards, implying the Zyphals rely on secrecy. They spot a group of laborers carrying heavy stones. Among them sits a silver-haired man, drinking wine while others toil. He identifies the man as Muran Zyphal, a notorious madman of the clan. Murakami suggests a quick ambush to eliminate the leader. Dino approaches Muran, feigning drunkenness to create a distraction. Muran greets the journalist with a twisted smile, recognizing him. He asks Dino if he brought the friends he mentioned earlier. Dino signals them, revealing that he knew they were followed. He realizes Dino was testing them to see if they were strong enough. Muran stands up, his demeanor shifting from bored to predatory. He asks Dino who these interesting guests are. Muran reveals he knows Dino is a journalist investigating the site. Suddenly, Muran attacks, a burst of magic destroying the campsite. He shields Dino from the blast, his eyes locking onto the sorcerer. A massive explosion rips through the forest, illuminating the night. He emerges from the smoke, furious at the indiscriminate attack. Muran laughs maniacally, unleashing a torrent of red energy. He deflects the spell, his sword glowing with shadow force. He notices that Muran keeps casting spells without pause. A giant hand of mana descends, crushing the ground where they stood. He slashes upward, cutting the mana construct in half. Muran looks surprised, realizing his opponent is not a normal warrior. Murakami and Kashmir engage the other guards, securing the perimeter. He dashes through the flames, aiming for the sorcerer's head. Muran blocks with a barrier, but the force of the impact sends him sliding back. The sorcerer pulls out a strange staff, its tip glowing ominously. He feels a sudden disruption in his flow of energy. Muran explains he is inducing mana backflow in his opponent, but he realizes the technique doesn't work well on a Runkandel. He charges through the spell, his resistance to magic proving superior. He slashes Muran across the chest, drawing first blood. Muran staggers back, shocked that a human could wound him. The sorcerer laughs, claiming the pain makes him feel alive. Muran activates a dark spell, draining energy from the nearby laborers. The natives scream as their life force is siphoned to fuel the mage. He realizes the laborers are being used as living batteries. Enraged, he vows to kill the monster before him. Muran's eyes glow blue as he prepares a forbidden technique. Blue flames erupt from the ground, a signature of the Zyphal's secret arts. He knows he cannot dodge this attack in time. He summons Tess, the blue phoenix, to counter the fire. The bird absorbs the flames, shielding him and the girl he rescued. He carries the injured girl to safety, thanking his summon. He turns back to Muran, his eyes cold and filled with killing intent. He declares that playtime is over, raising his sword for the kill. He grips his sword, the blue flames of Tess swirling around him. Muran stares in shock, asking if he intends to unleash hell. The mad sorcerer summons a dark energy, attempting to possess himself with a demon beast. A vortex of purple mana swirls around Muran, signaling the arrival of Orogal. Muran laughs, his sanity slipping further away as the power consumes him. He slashes forward, his blade cutting through the gathering storm. He demands to know what that spell is, sensing a danger beyond simple magic. The phoenix cries out, its blue flames clashing with the purple void. Muran reveals that the spell allows the demon beast king to enter his body. He realizes he must stop the ritual before the transformation is complete. He charges, his sword coated in the heaviest shadow force he can muster. The ground cracks beneath his feet as he launches himself into the air. He leaps through the dark flames, ignoring the searing heat. He swings his blade, aiming to sever the connection to the demon realm. Muran is knocked back, the ritual interrupted by the brute force of the attack. Blood drips from his mouth. The backlash of the interrupted spell taking its toll, he decides to dismiss Tess, realizing the summon has done its job. Muron grins, seeing the phoenix fade and assuming his opponent is weakening. A massive magic circle forms beneath Muron, pulsing with unstable energy. The sorcerer channels every ounce of his remaining mana into one strike. He steadies his breath, focusing his will into a single point on his blade. He strikes from above, his sword descending like a thunderbolt. The blade slices deep into Muron's chest, blood spurting into the air. The magic circle shatters, the energy dispersing into harmless sparks. Muron staggers, looking down at his wound in disbelief. The sorcerer collapses, his body hitting the waterlogged ground. A strange, dark artifact falls from Muron's grasp. He gasps for air. The adrenaline fading as the battle ends, he pants heavily, the exhaustion of the battle finally catching up to him. He feels a sudden wave of dizziness, his vision blurring. Murakhan calls out to him, worried about his condition. He clutches his chest, feeling the familiar burn of mana disruption. He coughs violently, realizing he is suffering from mana backflow again. He looks at his trembling hand, the veins darkening from the internal damage. He pulls out a paper packet, the secret remedy he prepared. He swallows the unicorn horn powder, praying it works in time. Kashmir rushes to his side, asking if he is all right. He confirms that the powder is working, his mana stabilizing instantly. He stands up, shaking off the last remnants of the pain. Kashmir points out something alarming in the distance. He explains that while the immediate threat is gone, the real problem is just starting. He looks toward the horizon, sensing a massive gathering of energy. Tika approaches them, her face pale with fear. A rumble shakes the earth, signaling the arrival of a massive force. The sky darkens as a fleet of dragons and sorcerers descends. A man with glasses leads the group, his aura sharp and disciplined. This is Midor Elnor, the minor tower master of the 7th Magic Tower. He explains that Midor is a formidable opponent. Unlike the insane Muron, Tika hides behind him, terrified by the sheer number of enemies. He calculates the time it took for them to arrive, realizing they were ready. He asks Kashmir to prepare for a defensive battle. He knows they cannot defeat an entire magic tower alone. A massive barrier of ice suddenly erupts from the ground. The barrier blocks the Zyphal forces, freezing their advance. Snow begins to fall, covering the battlefield in a layer of white. He looks up, confused by the sudden intervention. Two figures appear from the mist, their presence commanding the battlefield. Midor orders his men to hold fire, recognizing the newcomers. He stares at the woman in the lead, feeling a chill run down his spine. Midor shouts, demanding to know where Muron is. The woman steps forward, her fan hiding a smirk. A shadowy figure stands beside her, his face obscured by a magical helm. Midor accuses them of killing his brother and mocking the clan. The Zyphal mages prepare their staffs, glowing with hostile light. The woman raises her hand, a single gesture silencing the crowd. A massive shockwave blasts the Zyphal front line, knocking them back. She reveals herself as Talaris Endorma, the ruler of the secret palace. The air freezes around her, the temperature dropping to lethal levels. Midor is stunned, realizing he is facing a legend. She turns to him, introducing herself formally to the Runkandel. He is shocked that she is standing despite her internal injuries. She smiles, telling him she is fine and ready to fight. She compliments Cirrus, who is standing guard nearby. Cirrus Endorma, her daughter, watches with a mix of pride and worry. Cirrus denies any romantic involvement with him, flustered by her mother's teasing. Talaris laughs, enjoying the moment despite the tension. He looks at the mother and daughter, realizing their strength is immense. Cirrus tends to his wounds, her healing magic soothing his pain. He thanks her, grateful for the support. He feels a renewed strength flowing through his limbs. Talaris steps forward again, facing the Zyphal army alone. Midor warns her that interfering in Zyphal affairs is an act of war. Talaris scoffs, claiming she is just doing her job. A giant snake construct appears behind her, summoned by her power. She tells Midor to shut his mouth before she freezes it shut. Midor deploys a defensive barrier, fearing her next move. A beam of fire shoots from the sky, sky, striking Talaris's position. She blocks it effortlessly with her fan, the flames dissipating. A man in gold armor descends, unleashing another spell. He recognizes the spell as a spatial explosion, a high-tier magic. Talaris freezes the explosion in mid-air, shattering the spell like glass. She mocks the attacker, asking if he is confident or just stupid. The mysterious helm-wearer appears behind Midor. Midor turns too late, realizing his barrier is gone. The helm-wearer is the White Knight, an elite Zyphal unit. The appearance of the White Knight signals that the Zyphals are truly serious. Suddenly, a massive shadow looms over the battlefield. The Kozek, the Zyphal clan's flagship, descends from the clouds. He realizes the situation has escalated beyond a simple skirmish. The ship's presence alone exerts a crushing pressure. The White Knight unit deploys from the ship, surrounding them. Talaris remains calm, though her expression hardens. She whispers to him that they cannot win a prolonged battle here. She gives him 1 hour to finish whatever he needs to do. She explains that she needs to speak with his father afterwards. He asks Tika if there is a faster way to complete the ritual. Tika hesitates, knowing the risk involved. She reveals that without the priestess Ryosa, it is nearly impossible. He asks if Ryosa is dead, fearing the worst. Talaris interrupts, saying Ryosa is safe in Tikan. She smiles, revealing she sent Ryosa away for safety. He sighs in relief, knowing they still have a chance. Talaris asks him to use his kitty paws to help, referring to Murakan. The Kozek charges its main cannon, a weapon of mass destruction. The White Knight leader demands they hand over the murderer of Miuran. Talaris draws her sword, a blade made of pure ice. She summons a giant ice avatar, preparing to intercept the blast. The air crackles with energy as the cannon prepares to fire. The cannon fires, a beam of pure energy tearing through the sky. Talaris's avatar catches the beam, struggling against the immense power. The ground shakes violently as the two forces collide. The impact creates a shockwave that flattens the surrounding forest. She smiles, asking if that's the best they can do. The smoke clears, revealing Talaris standing unharmed. The White Knight leader realizes they cannot defeat her easily. He orders his men to target the natives instead. He realizes their plan is to force a surrender by threatening the innocent. The Zyphals issue a final ultimatum. Leave or everyone dies. He looks at Tika, seeing the despair in her eyes. A second blast charges, this one aimed directly at the ground. Talaris blocks it again, but cracks appear in her defense. Debris rains down, threatening to bury them all. Ceres steps in, while using her sword to deflect the falling rocks. He sees Talaris struggling, her energy draining rapidly. The White Knight leader mocks them, knowing they are trapped. He threatens to erase Colin from the map if they don't comply. Talaris tells him that they need to send Tika to the altar now. Ceres promises to cover them while they move. He grabs Tika's hand, telling her they need to run. He worries that Ceres cannot handle the shrapnel alone. Tika screams, begging him to flee and save himself. She claims that without Rausa, the mission is lost anyway. An old native man steps forward, begging Tika to survive. The man pushes Tika toward him, sacrificing himself to the flames. Tika cries out as her people are consumed by the Zyphal's fire. He grabs Tika, dragging her away from the carnage. He tells her that Rausa made a choice to save the future. Tika wipes her tears, her expression hardening with resolve. She agrees to go to the altar, trusting him with her life. He charges through the battlefield, cutting a path for her. Ceres fights beside him, her ice sword flashing in the chaos. A beam of light nearly hits them, but Murakan deflects it. Murakan yells at him to keep moving, holding the line. He slashes through a wall of fire, his shadow force protecting them. A White Knight soldier blocks their path, his spear glowing. He thrusts Bradamante, piercing the soldier's armor. He tells himself he cannot live with the decision to run away. He grabs Tika and throws her toward the altar entrance. Tika lands safely, looking back at him in horror. She screams, asking why he stayed behind. He turns to face the pursuing army, his sword raised. He tells Ceres not to look back and to keep running. Ceres hesitates, torn between duty and her feelings. He smiles, assuring her that he won't die here. He stares down the enemy, his eyes burning with determination. A golden light begins to gather around him, a new power awakening. He declares that he has made his choice. He will fight to protect his allies no matter the cost. He stands alone against the might of the Zayful clan, ready to die or win. He wakes up to darkness, the debris of the battlefield scattered around him. He blinks, realizing he is still alive despite the catastrophic explosion. He surveys the area, seeing the aftermath of the collision between gods and machines. He declares that he does not regret his decisions, though the cost was high. A bright light descends from the sky, taking the form of a man in white. The figure introduces himself as Clam, the consciousness within the artifact. She reveals her true form, a giant goddess radiating pure mana. She explains that she has been waiting for the contractor of Solderet. She reveals that the mirror is actually a seal created by Solderet. She shows him the artifact, a disk of condensed mana and shadow. The infinite mana within it was threatening to destroy the world until it was sealed. The natives of Kolon endured centuries of suffering to protect this seal. She offers the mirror to him, passing on the burden and the power. He accepts the artifact, feeling the immense energy flow into him. She thanks him for releasing the natives from their cursed duty. With her purpose fulfilled, the goddess begins to fade into light. As she disappears, the spirits of the natives appear one last time to bow. One of the survivors, Tika, wipes her tears, grateful for the liberation. He assures her that the Zayfuls will no longer torment them. He enters the cabin where his allies are recovering. Talaris Endorma prepares to leave, her job finished. She teases him about a rematch, maintaining her playful demeanor. A month passes, and news of the Kolon incident shakes the world. Reports spread that an unnamed traveler stopped the Zayful atrocities. The Zayful clan takes a massive hit to their reputation, forcing them into silence. He watches as donations and letters of support pour in for the refugees. A letter arrives from Kashmir, detailing the next phase of their plan. He senses a disturbance, a cold chill running down his spine. Kashmir feels it too, a premonition of a new threat looming. He realizes his mana has grown to 7 stars thanks to the mirror. His butler interrupts, announcing a visitor who claims to know secrets. He looks out the window, curious about who would dare approach him. He recognizes the man at the gate immediately. It is J2, the swindler who once tried to drug him. He orders the man brought in, amused by the audacity. J2 enters, terrified. Ayan, realizing he has walked into the lion's den, he realizes his client is the very man he tried to scam. J2 falls to his knees, begging for mercy. He demands to know why J2 is here and what he knows. J2 confesses he has information on Spider Hand Alu. He reveals that Alu's real name is Tagan Marius. The name Marius triggers a memory. He recalls that the kingdom of Delki had a civil war 20 years ago. The Marius family ran an orphanage that trained child assassins. One of the instructors there was named Timian Marius. He connects the dots. Timian is the nanny of his sister Luna. He realizes there is a traitor deep within the Runcandle clan. He decides to investigate this lead immediately. They arrive in the kingdom of Delki disguised to avoid attention. They head to the address J2 provided, looking for other survivors. He knocks on the door, but there is no answer. He notices signs of a struggle and kicks the door open. Inside, they find a gruesome scene. The contact is dead, murdered before they could arrive. He inspects the body, noting a needle wound in the neck. It is a professional assassination using a rare poison. He realizes someone is cleaning up loose ends. He deduces the killers are moving down the list of survivors. He orders J2 to lead them to the next target immediately. They rush through the streets, racing against time. They arrive at a large house, sensing a presence inside. He spots figures on the roof, silhouettes against the moon. He dashes forward as an attacker lunges at a victim. He intercepts the blow, his sword clashing with a dagger. He pushes the attacker back, standing between the killer and the survivor. The assassins reveal themselves, a woman with red hair and a man with white hair. He recognizes them as Varys and Kuzan, elite killers. The woman, Varys, mocks him for interfering. Kuzan remains silent, his aura radiating danger. The battle begins, metal sparking in the night. He parries Kuzan's strike, feeling the weight behind it. He notes that Kuzan is an 8-star swordsman. Varys attacks with magic, wind blades slicing the air. He unleashes a burst of energy, knocking them both back. He fights 2 opponents at once, his movements a blur. Varys is blinded by dust, losing sight of her partner. Kuzan is injured, blood dripping from his side. Varys screams in rage, unleashing a torrent of green fire. He dodges the flames, using his shadow force to slip through the attack. He summons the blue phoenix. Blue flames counter countering the green. Kuzan stares in shock at the unfamiliar power. He presses the advantage, driving Kuzan back. He disarms the assassin with a precise strike to the wrist. Kuzan falls, defeated. He carries the unconscious assassin, intending to interrogate him, but before he can speak, a knight appears. A man in armor grabs the survivor, intending to silence the witness. He curses, realizing there is a third party involved. He wakes up later in a luxurious room, the battle over. Prince Laika watches him from the bedside, his expression a mix of relief and calculation. He informs his guest that 3 hours have passed since the poison was neutralized. He marvels that a toxin strong enough to kill an 8-star warrior was overcome so quickly. Laika bows his head, thanking him sincerely for saving the kingdom from ruin. But the gratitude quickly shifts to business, the prince's ambition taking over. He requests that more guardian knights be assigned to Delki once the succession is decided. He also boldly asks for the return of the gold mine shares currently held by the Runkindels. Laika admits he is gambling everything on the belief that the young man before him will be patriarch. He stares out the window, realizing that he has just secured a powerful political ally. Outside the villa, he meets Kashmir, who is waiting with a grim report. Kashmir explains that the captured assassins refused to speak to anyone but him. He reveals the shocking truth. Varys and Kuzan were raised by Timion Marius. A flashback shows the two assassins on their knees, begging their mother for forgiveness. Timion stands over them, her face cold and devoid of the warmth she shows Luna. She disowns them for their failure, casting them aside like broken tools. The memory fades, leaving a chilling realization of Timion's true nature. He realizes that Timion must have struck a deal with a higher power in the clan to operate this way. He decides he must confront her directly, with Luna as a witness. He walks down the corridor, the weight of the coming revelation heavy on his shoulders. He knocks on Timion's door, Luna standing silently behind him. They enter the room, finding the nanny waiting in the dark. Luna steps forward, her voice trembling as she demands the truth. Timion looks at her charge, her expression shifting from fear to resignation. She asks if Luna knows about the assassins raised in her name. Timion confesses in claiming she did it solely to ensure their survival. She reminds Luna of the countless threats they faced within the family. Servants and knights loyal to Luna were systematically hunted and killed. She lists the dead, a litany of names that were erased for daring to serve the White Whale. A flashback reveals a younger Timion standing amidst the graves of her colleagues. She swore then that she would not be a victim, that she would fight fire with fire. Luna argues that she gave up the throne to stop exactly this kind of bloodshed, but Timion counters that weakness only invites more aggression in this house. She declares that she raised hounds to bite back at the wolves circling them. Suddenly, the door creaks open, interrupting the tense confession. Armored figures step into the room, their weapons drawn and dripping with intent. He recognizes them immediately, not clan executioners, but cleaners sent to silence a loose end. The lead assassin lunges for Timion, aiming to cut her throat before she can speak further. He moves to intercept, his speed exploding in the confined space. His sword clashes with the assassin's blade, sparks illuminating the room. But another assailant strikes from the shadows, hitting Timion with a needle. The assassin bites a poison capsule and collapses, ensuring no interrogation is possible. Timion gasps, black blood spilling from her lips as the toxin takes hold. She looks at her hand, realizing it is the same poison she used on her own children. With her dying breath, she whispers the name of the sorcerer who cursed him, Kiddard Hall, and she names the master who ordered it all, Joshua Runkandel. Luna screams, clutching her nanny's body as the life fades from the woman's eyes. The realization that her brother orchestrated this tragedy breaks something inside her. He watches his sister's grief turn into a cold, terrifying rage. Outside, the storm intensifies, mirroring the turmoil within the villa. Varys, sensing her mother's death, weeps in her cell, unaware of the full betrayal. More knights arrive, this time bearing the crest of the Black Knights. They demand custody of the situation, claiming to act on the Patriarch's orders. Luna steps out into the rain, her aura flaring like a beacon of death. She mocks them, knowing they are merely Joshua's pawns hiding behind the clan's laws. She unleashes her power, the pressure forcing the elite knights to their knees. She recalls Joshua's warnings to stay out of the succession war. She realizes realizes that her neutrality was never respected, only exploited. She turns to him, her eyes burning with a resolve he has never seen before. She swears an oath. She will be his sword and shield until he claims the throne. She pulls him into a hug, apologizing for her past blindness. He holds her, feeling the wet armor against his skin, accepting her alliance. He knows that with Luna by his side, the balance of power has shifted irrevocably. Days turn into weeks as they hunt for the sorcerer responsible for the curse. Kashmir brings news. A man matching the description is in Meltador. He travels to the feudal state, tracking the target to a remote tavern. Inside, an old man sits alone, radiating a disturbing, magical pressure. The man introduces himself as Huel, a student, but the disguise is thin. He places a magic tome on the table, a relic of the Hister clan. The old man's eyes widen, his greed overpowering his caution. He drops the act, revealing himself as Kiddard Hall, the master of backflow magic. Kiddard offers to teach him the ultimate spell in exchange for the book. He scoffs, telling the old man he has no interest in learning from a corpse. Kiddard realizes he has been trapped and summons his mana. The tavern shakes as the sorcerer prepares to unleash hell. Kiddard boasts that his magic is invincible, a legacy of the great Hister lineage. He casts Backflow Cascade, a vortex designed to drain and invert an opponent's energy. Blue light floods the room, tearing at the very fabric of the air. He calmly raises the mirror, the artifact pulsing with Soldere's power. The vortex hits the mirror and vanishes, absorbed into the infinite void within. Kiddard screams in disbelief, his life's work nullified in an instant. He steps through the fading magic, his sword gleaming in the blue light. He drives the blade into the sorcerer's chest, ending the source of his past misery. Kiddard slumps against the wall, dying with the realization of his folly. He looks down at the body, feeling the curse of his past life finally lift. The fire consumes the tavern, burning away the last traces of the enemy.